Mies van der Rohe, born in 1886, was a native of Aachen, Germany. Before the First World War, he worked in the office of Peter Behrens between 1908 and 1912. Between this time, he designed villas in a style that combined Greek and Gothic features. After fighting in the war, he returned to Berlin in 1919. However, Mies was facing a crossroad at that time. On the one hand, he was content with his pre-war office, which mainly focused on large suburban houses. On the other hand, he was becoming active in the Didaic Artistic Circle, a population of artists who were against modern capitalist society. He built and conceptualized many revolutionary pieces of architecture in his time. His work for the discipline and newfound focus on clarity and simplicity made him one of the pioneers of modern architecture.
Rohe published his most famous essay, Two Glass Skyscrapers, in the year 1922. This short manifesto lays out two of his new skyscraper proposals, one to be Berlin's proposed first skyscraper and another to be an entirely glass, circular office building. Mies wanted to create new forms of buildings to tackle problems they were facing in the skyscraper realm. He thought that unnecessary and poorly designed forms hide the structure of the buildings, and that the structure is the basis of artistic design. He saw glass exteriors as the solution to these problems for a few sound reasons. Outer walls don't create weight in skeletal buildings, which makes it possible to utilize glass as outer walls. Transparent outer walls allow the surface to be shown and understood more easily, and the reflective aspect produced by it creates an entirely new outer appearance. His proposed design for the Friedrichstrasse station in Berlin embodies these aspects clearly. He hypothetically designed these buildings for a competition held for a glass tower. This massive glass structure would have sat on a triangular site plan and had slightly angled out walls, creating one-of-a-kind view from ground level, and according to Mies, this angular design was intended to avoid the monotony of an overly large glass surface.
Mies van der Rohe designed the Seagram building in Manhattan, which was completed in 1958. Built for the Seagram Company, he was allowed an unlimited budget on the design. It may seem like an ordinary building in New York today, but this building had a wide influence in American architecture, since it was one of the first modern skyscrapers. The project was initially met with obstacles, and aid to buy surrounding properties for the tower could fit. As the logistics of fitting all of its needs came out, the design was altered many times to cater to it. A staple of its exterior is the steel frame structure. After the end of the Second World War, America was the supplier of half the world's steel, and it was being used to build practically every skyscraper. This would allow skyscrapers to grow taller and taller than ever before.
In 1922, Mies constructed the glass skyscraper in Berlin. Similar to Mies's other work, the curvilinear skyscraper challenged the building norms of that era, featuring a bold, curved base and floor-to-ceiling glass panels. Mies himself stated that the structural principle of these buildings becomes clear when one uses glass for the non-load-bearing walls. He continued by saying, "The use of glass forces us to use new ways." Mies's suggestion to use glass for non-load-bearing walls parroted the views of most German contemporary critics. By using glass material at the facade of the building, Mies is attempting to represent the aesthetic value of the skyscraper. Also, because glass is a transparent material, using glass walls enables the public to view the inside of the skyscraper. By doing so, Mies challenged the conventional architectural thought of that time, which emphasizes the roles of facilities such as restaurants, cafes, and living rooms. Although the design of the skyscraper represents the German enthusiasm for skyscrapers during the so-called skyscraper craze, the designs lack the monumentality and nationalistic connotations that were present throughout most projects of this period. This, combined with the fact that there was neither a need for office space nor enough money to build such expensive high-rises, forced most designs to stay on paper.
Mies' achievements came to a culmination with his German pavilion for the International Exposition in Barcelona in 1929. This has been acclaimed by critics as one of the milestones of modern architecture. In this project, Mies first worked without the limit of functional requirements and insufficient funds. In this building, even though he used multiple materials, as he did in his former works, he successfully emphasized the presence of the steel skeletal structure with glass walls. The pavilion's ingredients merely included steel columns and planes with different materials put both horizontally and vertically. The space within it is quite complex, as it's designed as continuous rather than confined. His use of glass really worked out at creating ambiguity and boundaries between spaces. One can clearly see through the glass to understand the structure of this pavilion, while being aware that the space is actually split like glass.
Another one of Mies's more well-known projects is the Farnsworth House, located in Plano, Illinois, along the Fox River. The project is well known for being one of the first glass houses, and infamous for the legal battles between Dr. Edith Farnsworth and Mies van der Rohe. Mies made the major mistake of building a house in the floodplain of the river and not elevating it high enough to escape the rising water. The house also ran over budget by roughly $30,000, not including the architectural design fees. Ultimately, a 2-month trial was set to settle the dispute between Miss Farnsworth and Mies. The court concluded that Mies was owed $4,500 in construction fees and another $13,000 in design fees. It was ruled that no budget was ever agreed upon between Mies and Miss Farnsworth, and that Mies designed the house as well as he could given the location. Following the loss, Miss Farnsworth began to publicly bash Mies van der Rohe, both as a person and a designer. At first, no one listened to what she had to say, but her claims gradually began to gain traction. In April of 1953, Hearst magazine House Beautiful wrote an article titled "Threats to the Next America," in which they extended the Farnsworth arguments about the house. She said Mies's architecture was cold and barren, and his furniture was sterile, thin, and uncomfortable. Despite all this criticism, Mies's career wasn't affected very much. Despite her scathing reviews on the house, Miss Farnsworth still continued to call it her country retreat for 20 years. In an act of complete irony, she fought the county she lived in to preserve the land the house sat on, and said that the house and land together is a work of art that must be preserved.
It is fair to say, Mies was eventually successful in searching for a new style to fit the modern industrial age. Given this, Mies had his fair share of ups and downs in attempting to please the public with implementing his ideas into his work. It didn't give the world instant satisfaction, and he received many mixed opinions. This made him stand out as an architect. We thank him for making the possibility of large-scale architecture and minimalistic structures, and further, his use of bare materials to emphasize a modernist aesthetic. Although it wasn't immediate, he turned out to be one of the most influential patriarchs of modern architecture.
Feeling